So we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. We'll start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Speaking of Mark Crane, I'd like to do a moment of silence for passing of Mark Crane. And please say a prayer if you feel so inclined. Okay. Yes, we will miss Mark. He was a bright light for sure. Every time he came to one of our meetings, he always was ready to go and do a hip pocket speech. And lived quite the life for sure, the military and whatnot. As Jackie mentioned, they did send a email around saying the funeral information, which is Friday, I believe, 4 to 7 calling hours. In this point of the meeting, I'd like to get an inspiration, if I could, for Mike Licata. Is he around, Mike Licata?
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Stevens. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My inspiration this morning will be simple and short. Like Jackie said, enjoy every day. I'm very sad to hear about Mark's news. He was a great Toastmaster and he had tremendous potential to help grow the club. And with Phil's theme this morning of what's on your mind, just take the time to enjoy each other's company this morning and understand and grow through Toastmasters, through our weekly experiences, and I hope everyone has a good week. Mr. Immediate past president.
Thank you, Mike. I see Phil Russell's up at the lectern. Make sure I get the term.
I am here.
And we'll turn over the meeting to the Toastmaster of the day, Phil. Round of applause.
Well, good morning. What's on your mind? Hey, I got a question. Start off today. When you were young, very young, did you have to go to somebody and say, what's potpourri? Potpourri. What's potpourri? I had to ask my mother, and she explained to me what potpourri is. It's an accumulation of herbs and things to make things smell nice. And so what we have today, what's on your mind? This is going to be your meeting to tell me what's on your mind. And I just saw a word master walk in, not only being a word master, but I understand he also is to be a master and grammarian. They call it a wag master, but let's see if there's anybody out there that could help Dave with these jobs. Come on up here, David. What's your word?
Good morning. I had a situation where I usually try to contact the Toastmaster and find out if he has a theme, and then I in turn try to make an appropriate word for the theme, but that opportunity didn't avail itself. But something that did deal with Phil did come up. So the word today is serendipity, SERENDIPITY. The occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy and beneficial way. I will also take the word serendipitous. So, Phil, it was very serendipitous when I found out that my MasterCard was due, and I found a check that you gave me for that golfing in July in my car. So that's all straightened out now, Phil. Okay, we buddies again. So WAG. The other one is master. A for us. Now it's the political season. And as Toastmasters, we certainly want to separate ourselves from the candidate that used too many ahs and too many ums. And that's why we keep track of that. And we want to be conscious and try to use our good grammar. And I'll probably throw in a little bit of television criticisms as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.
Mr. Wagmaster, maybe you could get Mary to help you out with some of those things. And maybe Kate could even help her and then help us at the end. Could you do that, Mary? Great. Now, it was very serendipitous yesterday that Dave could not make it to golf. But I understand he caught a, was it 21-inch northern?
Walleye.
Walleye.
Caught a walleye by the lake. And the other day, Tuesday, I doubled my total by catching two.
Whoa.
Magic location, 8/10 of a mile from my house, right across the street from the Lockport.
Hey, the 18-mile creek is coming back. We used to walk in that creek. Or just go down there, we'd make rafts and things like that. And because of the chemicals came there, we'd go home and our legs would look like rainbows. Our mother said, "Where are you guys?" "Oh, we're just down in 18 miles. Don't you go down there ever again." Oh, yeah, that was the days. Those were the days. Now we have that. Now we need a quote. Dr. Stevens, are you available for a quote?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'd like to show you my book here, if you can see it. See it. Oh, there we go. Kind of.
Daryl, we can't see it because you have your background.
That's okay. You can see it now. It says positive
Okay.
quotations. I learned this from Dave Licata. He also has a book of quotes. So I don't need to look on the internet. I have a fancy book here, and I have a few quotes on hope for you today, since it is a potpourri theme. They say a person needs just three things to be truly happy in this world: someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. Tom Bodett. Second quote for you. Let us not our fears hold us back from pursuing our hopes. John F. Kennedy. And I always do three. Hope is the anchor of the soul, the stimulus to action, and the incentive to achievement. I hope you achieve today. Anand. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Now, the individual who did bring Mark to us, right? A fellow knight of Columbus of mine and Marty's. Let's bring up Marty Johnson for a jest for this morning. Marty Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day, fellow Toastmasters and guests. And it was sad news to hear about Mark. But on another note, in a sort of serendipitous way, Mark Crane found out about a garage sale at my parents' house after they both passed. We had a huge sale in the garage. My brother had all kinds of things laid out. Some sold, some didn't. You know how it goes. I'm sure many of you have seen different junk go. You know, one person's junk is another's treasures, as they say. But there were some nice things that sold. Some treasure hunters came and found some things that they liked. And then all of a sudden, one of the last days of the sale on the weekend, Mark Crane came walking up the driveway. And I just happened to be there. And I said, "Mark, how you doing?" He's, "Oh, good, good, good." He just came to see what you have, you know, smiling like he would be. And long story short, he bought an old Victrola. Actually, he didn't buy it. He said he was going to give us $50 for it. And I never got the $50 for it, but I got an old Schwinn Traveler bike for it in trade from Mark a couple months later. And I saw Mark periodically I would see Mark periodically at Top Shopping, and he'd come up and he'd say, Marty, he goes, how's it going? Good. And we talk about Toastmasters and different things. And one day I said, Mark, whatever happened with that Victrola? And it was nice, and it actually worked. And I forgot to mention it was from the early 1900s, and it was in my parents' garage, and it still worked. I couldn't believe it. We plugged it in and it worked. And I was thinking to my sisters, why did we sell that for $50? I'm like, what the heck? And I said, Mark, what did you do? And he said, well, I was hoping to give it to the Palace Theater, you know, for some historical use. And Mark said, no, he goes, I'm going to use it for parts. And I'm thinking, really? You're going to use that for parts? And I almost fell apart, you know, just thinking about it. But that's where we stand with that. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
All right, Marty. Okay, the jester. Now we have a timer. Our timer is Michael Florio. Michael is in the house.
Hi, Phil, Mr. Toastmaster. Well, time's precious, isn't it? And we learn that kind of all the time, especially with Mark. It's really sad. Great guy that he was. And I'm glad to have known him, really, and run into him here. Time waits for no one. No favorites has he, right? And same thing here in Toastmaster. Prepared speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. You'll get the green at 5, the yellow at 6, and the red at 7 for most speeches. Table topics, 1 to 2 minutes. You'll get the green at 1 minute, the yellow at 1.5, and 2 minutes, you better be wrapping it up. Evaluations are 2 to 3. 2 minutes, you'll get the green. 2.5 minutes, you'll get the yellow, and 3 minutes, we are going to bring the hook out for you. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Good thing here. Now, when you mentioned, you know, I had a thought about Mark. First, I asked him, were you related to Evan? He told, yes, uncle, I think. Evan was his uncle. Evan Crane, we went to school with, Jackie and I. Great kid, great guy. Remember him fondly. And the other thing is, he came to Toastmasters knowing he was sick. And he took advantage. He didn't have time to tell his whole story, but he stuck in there right to the end. I admire that. I really like that. Quizmaster. Eric, are you there? I see your head. Is you there? Eric.
Yes, I am here. Thanks, Phil. Before I jump into my role, I just want to say something about Mark. I have known Mark before Toastmasters. I ran cross country with his son, Phil, and I knew his entire family throughout the years of cross country and beyond that. And it was, you know, wonderful to see him in Toastmasters, and all in all, wonderful man. And I enjoyed the friendship that we had throughout the years. So he will be greatly missed. So as your quizmaster today, I will be quizzing everyone. There may be some money involved. I might give half my paycheck to somebody who wins today. So some maybe, maybe not, but then I will see if I can swindle some money for you. So that's what I'll be doing, Mr. Toastmaster.
Eric, thank you so much. Now for the fun parts. We likes to have funs here. And we're going to have some funs with table topics. Yes, my grammar is horrible, but that's okay. Come on up here, Jackie, and help us have some more funs.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad everyone's toasting Mark Crane. That was one of the things I wanted to mention while I was up here. So, a potpourri, things to think about. I'm kind of in my head a lot. I'm thinking about things all the time. If this happened, would I do this or would I do this? What will I say if someone says this to me? I play it out in my head. I've done that for a long time. I don't ever remember not doing it. So I think I will ask Joe Budnack here bright and early. Joe, come on up and talk to us about if that's something you do. Do you play out scenarios? Do you do that with the kids at school? And how does it work for you? Come on up, Joe. And don't forget to use the word serendipity. Very important.
I thank you for the serendipity and opportunity to come up and speak in front of everyone. And just want to say Mark Crane will be sadly missed too. He was one of my fellow Knights of Columbus and truly good friend. And I enjoyed spending time with him too and getting to know him. Yes, I think about things all the time. My mind is going a million miles a minute. I live in my own little world, as my mother said. And as my teachers used to say in school, especially when they were up in front of the classroom trying to teach and I was in my own little world, they didn't appreciate that either. But sure, I talk to the kids a lot too. I try to get them to say, if you make this decision, what's going to happen? If you want to crawl around on the table or crawl on the floor and not listen, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to earn outside time? Do you think you're going to earn free time? Or are you going to sit and stare at the four walls when your friends get to have fun? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. More times than not, but we at least try anyway. I do remember this one time years ago, my parents, my mother and I used to watch Little House on the Prairie all the time. And some of the episodes were really, really sad. And I used to really overthink it a lot when I would watch those shows. But there was one episode, it was particularly sad. It was the actress Patricia Neal. She played a mother she was dying and she was trying to find a home for her 3 children. And I was about 7 or 8 when I saw that, and it really affected me. And I was really upset about that. And I said to my mom, I don't want you and Dad to die. I don't want something to happen to one of you. Even though it was a TV show, I knew stuff like that happened in real life. But my mother said, the point she made at the time was, you can't promise that bad things will never happen, but you can't spend your whole life worrying about what if. You constantly worry about things that may or might happen, and constantly worry, then there's no joy in living. And that's something that she taught me that I have remembered to this day. And it was really good advice. So everyone have a good day today. Try to stay warm and have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And now the next person who's going to come up and talk is Mary Beth. Come on up here, Mary Beth. We'll get you ready. Okay, you know that you're going to watch Mike as the timer. You're going to make sure to use the word serendipity. I've known you for a long time, Mary Beth, and I'm glad you decided to join Toastmasters. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think Toastmasters is going to do for you? Mary Beth.
I think Toastmasters is going to help me improve my speaking because I need it. And I'm a lunch monitor and I have to yell at the kids and the kids can't hear me and everything. So I use serendipity all the time to wish the kids good luck. And they're bad sometimes.
And did you know, Mary Beth, that you can always change this topic and talk about other things if you want to, so that you talk long enough to meet the green?
But Kate just told me that.
Okay, then you can keep on going.
And I'm gonna use serendipity because me and Kate and Eric, I think are baking this weekend. Maybe at Kate's house. I don't know.
What are you gonna bake?
Pumpkin, something pumpkin.
That sounds good. I have a good pumpkin recipe.
Pumpkin muffins, we think we're doing.
That sounds good. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Oh, I do.
We always do that. All right, Mary Beth. I read a book last week. Pretty much every week I read a book. And I found myself really engrossed in the story, but I also found myself identifying with some of the characters. It was a book about people in Ireland, and some of them were so like character traits that I have. It was almost a little scary. Carol, would you like to come up and talk to us about something you've read lately and what it meant to you? Make sure you use the word serendipity at some point. Carol.
Prior to starting, Mr. Timer, I would again like to mention Mark Crane. I didn't know him well, but last week we went to breakfast. He sat right next to me and I listened to him for the hour or whatever, and really got to know him. And that was, you know, you have to appreciate every minute you have with people. That's so. Okay. Actually, I just finished a book that my daughter had given me. She's an avid reader. And it was called The Request. And it was a mystery and events that had happened years ago to the character. Actually, it was a drunk driving accident, and he thought he was driving, but his friend made him think he'd been driving, but they were all drunk. And all these years he held guilt. And then it was he's at one point, the main character was sent to a house to get letters that were would get them all in trouble, because he'd never told his wife about this drunk driving thing. And the thing with the book was you just felt the emotions and things, like he walked in and there was a dead body, and you know, it was one of those books that, you know, you kind of covered the end of one page because you didn't want to know what they told you at the end, because it was so surprising. And I just wanted to mention a serendipitous event in my life was when I just happened to go to a Lockport 20s club that existed back in the 70s. I just happened to go to a skating event, and I'd been out of town, came back early to go, and that's when I met my husband, Mr.
And Mr. Toastmaster, I'll turn it back over to you now. Thank you.
You. Whoa. Now, we need a timer's report. Mr. Timer, where are you?
We have a timer's report. All three of our contestants made time. Joe at 2:06, Mary Beth at 1:10, and Carol at 2:06. Thank you. Favorite topics.
And our word master, David.
Mike, I have wonderful news. My report is just as positive as yours. Joe Badnick used it once. Mary Beth, showing off a little, used it twice. And Carol Ann used it once with the retelling of that serendipitous moment when she got it going with Mr.
Here we go, David. Thank you, Mr. Wordmaster. A little quick housekeeping. Is Les Robinson in the house?
I'm here, Phil.
You're here?
Can you hear me?
Perfect. You have an evaluator. And that evaluator is Anne Marie Lenhart, and I believe also on Zoom. Anne Marie?
Yes, good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I always enjoy our meetings because they're very serendipitous. They never know what to expect, and there's a lot of creativity involved with all of our speakers. It gives me great pleasure today to evaluate Les Robinson III's speech. He's in the Mastery #1 level, and his purpose is to practice both vocal variety and body language to enhance his speech. So I'm going to be looking for gestures and also intonation of his voice. And his speech title is a multi-generational planning tool. And his time is 5 to 7 minutes. Mr. Toastmaster.
Let's turn it over to Les Robinson.
Before I start, I also knew Mark Crane and fellow Toastmaster and fellow Knights of Columbus, and Mark was a really great guy, and he will be missed. So I'm ready to start my speech. Using generational tools to protect your house, your money, your retirement, and your lifestyle from Medicaid and a nursing home risk. So what you want to do is you want to reduce these risks by using a very simple planning tool. Now, this planning tool, when I work with my clients, is as simple as 1, 2, 3. A lot of times I go places or I sit with other parts of the retirement team and they miss this very important tool, the multi-generational planning tool. And a lot of people think of multi-generational planning tool. Well, that's got to be for the really rich and wealthy people. No, because when you set up a multi-generational planning tool, your number one is to reduce the Medicaid and long-term care event or / risk from all of your money. Number two is what you do for yourself, you're going to do for your kids, and you're going to do for your grandkids. It's a very simple 1, 2, 3 process, because what you're doing is you're making sure that you get everything to work through the system correctly, which one will also eliminate probate. Number two, it's going to help reduce taxes. It's going to make the flow of money a lot effective. And the last one is basically you have a very interesting opportunity to avoid Medicaid, the 5-year look back, when you're doing the generational planning tool. A lot of people don't understand this. And what happens is when people pass away, very simple, when people pass away, their money goes directly to them. Okay, now here's where I've had this happen over and over, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I wrote my book, is they would come to me and say, well, mom is in the nursing home, dad had passed away, and mom had inherited X amount of money, and mom lost all the money in the nursing home. And I sat there and I have seen this over and over and over again. Or another one was mom and dad got older in their 90s. Their kids were in their 60s. Parents passed away. The money went to the kids in the 60s. They were in the nursing home and the state took the money. And it was something over and over. It's like going to, very simple, It's like going over to McDonald's on free hamburger day. You walk in, you pay for a hamburger, and you walk out because you didn't read any of the signs. So what happens when you insert this multi-generational planning tool? Number one is you start to talk about financial behavior, about your money, about avoiding Medicaid, how things are to be dispersed without talking about money. Because when everybody talks about money, well, everybody's like, oh, what am I going to get, or this and that. And it never works well. Number two is you're starting to have the long-term care talk about events in your family, because most people, when they think about long-term care, they think, oh my gosh, I got to help with mom and dad's personal hygiene. I don't want to do that. So they run away. So what you're doing is you're opening the door, very simple, to talks about this. So your children are going to sit there and say, well, it can't be that bad. Okay. And then on this, bringing this generational planning tool into place, okay, is detachment, because people want to get away. Very simple, get away. If I don't think about it, it'll go away. And the example is the person that 5 years ago goes to the doctor and says, you have cancer and you need to do this. Or they have acid reflux. You need to do this. And they say, well, if I don't think about it, it'll go away. And then 5 years later, they pass away and they go, well, I have like a day to live. I've seen this over and over and over. So by bringing in this tool process, very simple, very easy, it eliminates everything. So I'll give you an example about probate. Is you've acquired $600,000, you're in an apartment, and you pass away. You give all your stuff away, and basically what happens is you've paid for your funeral, and you have $600,000 sitting in your investment account. Your kids arrive, the lawyer says, hey, we're going to take care of this. They call up, and they say date of death, and they go boom, 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 boom. And the attorney says, we're going to have all the cash sent to the estate account, and then we're going to cut you the check. Well, simple. You think your kids are going to get $300,000 because on the date of death it was $600,000? No, your kids are going to get more, like about $260,000. So it costs you $40,000 for the attorney to pick up the phone and send the money. So the multi-generational planning tool comes into play. You bring the death certificates to the advisor. The money then transfers over as simple as 1, 2, 3, and you've saved your kids, about $60,000. So it becomes a win-win process. And then when you pass away, your kids move up the front, then their children and grandchildren. So it's a continuous flow to avoid taxes, probate problems. End of the day, what's really great about it, within 15 days, my client passes away, their stuff is given away, they celebrate their life, very happy, the money is dispersed, the family is updated, and it becomes a win-win versus a long drawing out of state and fights. Thank you very much.
I want you to take 1 minute, write down some remarks for Les to help him improve how you might see it to improve. You can either go on the internet or write him a note. Last time I was here, I brought some evaluation forms for those people I had not handed out before. So take 1 minute to write some notes. Our next two people are in the house, so keep working on that. And I will now, we have Tracy Farrell is in the house, and so is Mark Campos. I just saw him. Mark, are you ready to evaluate Tracy Farrell? Mark Campos.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, of course I am ready, and it is indeed a bit of serendipity that I have the privilege this morning of evaluating Tracy Farrell. Tracy is working out of the dynamic leadership pathway, level 5. The project is Reflect on Your Path. The purpose of the project is for the member to reflect on her growth during the completion of an entire path, and the purpose of the speech is for the member to share some aspect of her growth during the completion of a path. Mr. Timer, the time is 10 to 12 minutes. So I would assume green at 10, yellow at 11, and red at 12. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. It will be interesting. Tracy is always interesting. Let's give a warm welcome to Tracy Farrell. Tracy?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I started this path back in 2018. So I'm going to take you down memory lane. Sit back. I have 10 minutes to talk to you about it. We're going to start way back then. It was 2018. Deb Franco, one of my close friends, was starting the Buffalo Junior Service League Toastmasters Club. And I had known Deb for about 20 years. And actually, we met in the Lockport Junior Service League. So she said, look, I'm coaching this club. They need membership. You're in Toastmasters. You need to come help me. We only meet every other week. And afterwards, we go out to dinner. Well, dinner is what sold me. So I became a dual membership in both Lockport and the Buffalo Club. And with that dual membership, you get a free pass. I chose dynamic leadership. We're also looking at 2018. And at the time, I was finishing up my MBA at the University of Buffalo. And it was a 2-year program. They were very aggressive young professionals were all in my class, and we were divided up into cohorts. We also had to take the Myers-Briggs test, and mine came out to be introvert. You guys know me. That's perfectly fits me. Intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. Well, that's one of those odd personality types, and I was the only one in my class that did that, because these were all young professionals that I swear would eat their mother if they could get ahead. My group was especially aggressive. Mike in my group, that we had 5 in our group, Mike finished top of his class and Stacy finished second in our class. So they were aggressive, they were demanding of excellence, and I was by far the oldest one. However, my superpower in that group was I could sit back, look at the big picture, and say, hey, we need to do this. We need to come together on these. They turned to me when it was time to resolve personnel issues inside of our group. And in fact, one of our members did not survive. She just wasn't up to that standard that we had set in our group. And I had to be the one to talk to her, say, look, you need to meet our standards as a group and with the UB program. It came out really good, but we managed through it. Dynamic leadership also touches on communication. And okay, communication, I've learned a lot through Toastmasters, but I've also learned that my fatal flaw is honesty. And you might think, hey, that's a good thing. But no, not when you're too honest and you blurt out what you're really thinking. And especially when you're under stress, being too honest is not really a popular option in life. So I've learned to kind of temper that, especially when I'm under stress, and actually go through each one of my steps. I'm very prone to say, this is the answer, this is what we have to do, and this is the only way we can do it. If I can sit back, really come through, because that's how I'll think through things, is come through a logical process of how I came to that conclusion, people understand me better. And then maybe they still don't agree with that conclusion, but they understand it and can go along with it. Another thing that we've did is mentoring. Another thing that I'm not really keen on doing, taking the time to sit down and really explain processes, is not my idea of a fun time. I can sit there and give small tidbits like, you're doing a great job at this, or let's tweak this a little bit, but actually taking the time to sit down and mentor somebody through a new job or through a new process is difficult for me. So one of the ways I found to get around that process in my work is to really write down standard operating procedures. So for my job at the office, I've taken the entire job and divided it up into 12 months. And in January, these are the tasks I need to do. In March, this is what I need to do. And some of them are really easy tasks. I don't have to write down a process for it. But some of them are a little bit more difficult. So I can sit down, write down those, how to actually do it. There's a lot of checklists, like, okay, check this off. And those worksheets have made the process a little bit easier. And it's also kind of good for me because sometimes I only do a task once a year. So if I can look back and say, wow, how did I do that? What did I do on the computer to come to this conclusion? It helps me a little bit to do that. And we've done that in our office for every single position. And we've also gone through and said, okay, some of these things need to be changed. We can do it better by doing this. And if we write it down, it's in our procedure manual, we know we can do better next year. Managing change was actually the biggest project in this pathway. And we did it, I did it as a reassessment project for the city of Lockport. We hadn't done that in over 10 years. It was an expensive project. It was politically unpopular. And two of the previous mayors said, nope, we're not going to go down that road. And to be quite honest, I think our current mayor wouldn't have gone down it, but she inherited it. So here we are. We're doing a reassessment. It all started out fine and dandy until those new assessments hit the mailbox. And then people were coming out wanting to get some answers as to how this would happen. One of my biggest opponents was, one of our aldermen was one of my biggest opponents, and he was coming out screaming, but we had to take the time, really educate the public on why this is the fair way to go, why it's important to do it, and why to keep it going. And that opponent of mine, he was actually the one that came out and said, wrote a resolution that said, we're going to do this every single year. Admittedly, some do like the assessments and they did help them. Some people still aren't happy of it. But if they understand why we're doing it and to keep it fair across the entire city, that's what we need to do. And keeping us at 100% is really the best way to go for the city of Lockport. Final project was actually negotiation for the best outcome. And with reassessments, everybody gets the opportunity to appeal their assessments. I'm very comfortable working with the average homeowner, explaining to them the process. Sometimes they're right and we can change those. Sometimes it's just letting them know how we came to those assessments and how it will work. Sometimes, yeah, your assessment went up, but your taxes didn't. And if they understand that process, it's easy. The problem is when you work with the bigger corporations, they honestly don't care how their assessments come out. They're just looking to lower their expenses. And that's where it comes difficult for me. I have to be able to learn, like, what's the best outcome? Where can we meet at a price or a value that, yep, I don't believe that's the best value for you, but it's cheaper to go at that value than it is to keep fighting it. It's a little bit difficult. It's a hard pill to follow, but sometimes it really is just cheaper to settle at a lesser value. And I'm learning that in the long run, that's really the best outcome for the city. So that's kind of my trip down memory lane. And here we are today. The Buffalo Junior Service League Toastmaster is no longer in existence. My friend Deb Frankel's not with us anymore. Mark Crane has recently passed us. And these are all aspects that we have to sit back and look at. Some of these learning experiences were really difficult. Getting an MBA and working full-time wasn't easy. Doing a reassessment in the city really brought me down to my knees. But these are the tough things that we all have to go through. And dynamic leadership is really accepting the opportunity to struggle, because without these struggles, we never really find our strength. Mr. Toastmaster.
Take a moment, just a moment. Write down some thoughts, how you can help Tracy improve. Now, I want to thank everybody for responding to me through the internet. It was great. We had one that did not. Now, in Toastmasters, we don't apologize because we don't know the circumstances that exist. So we just take it in stride. Is Thomas Heldwine in the house? No. So I have arranged, I did not hear from him, and he was the only one that did not respond. And that's just unfortunate. But I found a substitute evaluator for our third speaker. Now, Kate Orr, who's on her way over here, for those that can't see her, she was the hostess with the mostest. And that's why I chose you to evaluate David Jones, because I had to come from Wilson. I couldn't complain. David came from the Carolinas and made it to the meeting on time. So I had to be here on time. Hostess with the mostest, Kate Orr.
We had a great time last Thursday. I can't believe it was already a week ago. And I am honored to be evaluating David Jones today. We got to know each other a lot better in person last week. What a fun day. And thank you to all of you who joined us along the way. And I'm so grateful that Mark really hung in there till the end. He didn't talk too much about how ill he was, but he joined us that morning. He joined us for breakfast. And so hanging in there until the end to give us, just to stay connected with us. Okay, now for David Jones. He is doing the path. I'm excited to hear this because it's a new project that was added to Pathways. If you haven't really been looking at Pathways, there have been some modifications, which I think are in a good direction for the most part. So he is speaking in the dynamic leadership path. This is a level 1 project, Mr. Timer. This is 5 to 7 minutes traditional length. And this project is writing a speech with purpose. The objectives to write a speech organized and really connect with us. And you have the title, so you'll introduce him, or shall I? I shall. Okay. This David Jones, Jesus is coming. Jesus is coming, David Jones.
Thank you, Kate. And before I get started, I do want to say thank you for hosting me last week. I had a great time there and exploring the city, and I look forward to coming back when I have more time. It was a short trip. I think I told Phil or Dave, the only reason I came for a day or two is I didn't know if I'd like you guys or not. So I wanted to get out of there, but I did enjoy everybody's company, so I look forward to coming back longer next time. For my speech, good morning, fellow Toastmasters and any guests that we might have. I have been traveling quite often this past year. I travel a lot for work, but I also travel for personal. And last week I was in Lockport, New York, and next week I'll be in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And whenever I travel, I have to decide, am I going to park at the airport parking garage, or am I going to park, or am I going to call a car service? And usually 5 days is a threshold. If it's 5 days or less, I'll park at the airport parking garage. But if it's longer than that, I'll have a car service. And recently I went on an 8-day trip, so obviously I had a car service come. In the morning of my trip, I got up, and as I always do, I checked the flight information, make sure it was on time. And sure enough, my plane was boarding in 2.5 hours. Now, to me, that can only mean one thing. It's time for me to start packing. So I start packing, getting ready. And just when I'm about done packing, I realize I got to summons the Uber. So I do it, and it's early in the morning, and it says, searching for a driver. I don't think about it, put the phone down, and I keep packing. Zip it up, put the luggage down, and weigh it. I always weigh my luggage because I don't want to be embarrassed at the airport. And it's always about 35 pounds. I don't know why I weigh it, but I just do. And as I'm getting ready to leave, I get a text. I had forgotten my phone, so fortunately somebody texted me and it said, Jesus is on his way. I thought, really, today? Today's not a good day for that. I couldn't help but wonder, was this a group text? Did everybody get it? Is it like an Amber Alert, like Jesus is coming, get ready? Or was it an individual text? Like he needs to talk to me about something. And it made me think about all the things that I've done recently that he might want to discuss. But there was too many. I couldn't put my finger on which it would be. I just kind of went about my business. And I was thinking, you know, we see the signs at churches and bumper stickers that say Jesus is coming. And to me, that's very open-ended, non-committal, because Jesus could be coming someday, next week, next year, in 100 years. But my text says Jesus is on his way. It was very specific. And I started getting a little excited because I wondered, how does Jesus get down here? Does he have wings like an angel? Is he going to come cruising down? Or does he have an entourage, a parade of archangels and horns, and it's a big event? Or is it like Star Trek? Does Jesus just teleport down and here I am? Now, my hope is that, and I have a theory, back in the 1950s, Jesus and the angels were bored. It had been 2,000 years. They're doing the same old, same old. And they came up with the thought of creating UFOs and wearing masks just to mess with the earthling. And that's what we see. Whenever we see a UFO, that's usually an angel checking up on it. And I hope that Jesus would come down and like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind UFO, the a huge one, and he comes out. I think that would be awesome. I also thought about how would he prove he's Jesus? We're a very skeptical society. I mean, a guy comes up to you and says, I'm Jesus. You'd be like, yeah, sure you are. I've met like 9 Jesus. And for him to prove himself, he might say, you see that guy in the wheelchair? I'm going to touch him and he's going to walk. I'd be like, I've seen that at 100 different revivals. They touch the guy, gets up, he starts dancing and having fun. And he'd say, all right, see that UFO over there? I can make it disappear. I'm like, I've seen David Copperfield do that. What else do you have? Point is, I think it would be very difficult for Jesus to prove that he's Jesus. But I figured there's nothing I could do about it. Let me go about my business. I go down and I'm waiting at the street corner and I am kind of looking around just to see what's going on. I get another text that says, Jesus is 2 minutes away. But that was very specific. And now I'm really looking because you should be able to see signs that he's coming. And I look down the street and sure enough, I think I see Jesus. There's a Subaru coming down the road. Now, if Jesus were here, what car would he drive? He wouldn't drive a Porsche or a truck. He would drive a Subaru. He's got the Birkenstock sandals, the hemp clothing, doesn't shave, doesn't wash his hair all the time. Obviously, he's going to be in a Subaru. And sure enough, the Subaru pulls up right next to me, rolls down the window. Yeah, he has an old Subaru. He's not going to buy a brand new Subaru off the lot at retail. That's not Jesus's way. He's going to go on Craigslist, find a good, dependable Subaru, rolls down the window, and he says, Mr. Jones, are you going to the airport? I was like, I am. Who are you? He said, I'm Jesus. I'm your Uber driver. Like, Jesus. That makes so much more sense. Jesus, Jesus. Get in the car, we start driving. And I thought, what a serendipitous encounter that I'm in a car with Jesus or Jesus. I mean, Jesus was a common man. He was a carpenter. Today's society, he could be an Uber driver. And as we're driving, I couldn't help but think, do I tip him? Because he owns the universe. Does he need my $3 or $4? I don't know. I was also thinking, do I give him a 4-star rating? The guy was very chatty, had a lot to say. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give him a good rating. We get to the airport, I get out, he drives off. And I started thinking, I don't believe that was Jesus. but you don't know. The purpose of my story is be nice to everybody you meet, because you never know. Jesus could be your Uber driver. Mr. Toastmaster.
I want you to take one moment, write some comments for David, and either give them to him next time or send them through the internet, the interweb, or whatever that thing is called that gets out there. We're old coots, and so we, what's that? I know Steve always does. Now, I didn't forget Steve. I ignored him. No, I didn't. I forgot you. Absolutely. He pointed out, I did not introduce him at the beginning. Well, let's do it at the end. He is the next to last. See, I have 2 pages on my clipboard, and he's the next to last person. It doesn't throw in there that you're supposed to introduce the general evaluator early. So I missed him. So it was an accident, a serendipitous accident. Let us bring a warm welcome to introduce and speak to our evaluators, Stephen Smith. Stephen, come on up here.
Nice try. Nice try to save. But first, before we go any further, let's get a timers report for our speakers.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. All of our speakers, contestants, made it this morning. Less than 5:59. Tracy right on the button at 10 minutes. I think she had a timer right in front of her. Dave at 6:28. So all made it.
Thank you. Now you can vote for them while I'm prattling away up here. I'll give our evaluators just a minute more. I want to tell a brief story about Mark. Last week we were at breakfast and we had quite a crew there. We had 2 tables, 3 tables, whatever we had, full, lots of people. Well, we all get in there, we order, and people are getting their food and I'm sitting there. And people are getting their food and I'm sitting there. Marty came in last. He got his food. I'm still sitting there. And where's my food? But I was looking at the poor waitress and she was going nuts. You could see it etched in her face. So, all right, I'm not going to be nasty here. And she finally came over and apologized to me. And we'll get you your order. And she said she wasn't going to charge me. Well, okay, thank you for that. I wasn't going to be that nasty. But then come to find out, when she finally brought my order, and I'm thinking, this is not what I ordered. But at this point, I don't care. But I realized that what she had done is she had given Mark my order and I got his order. And I said, poor Mark, he ordered a 4-cheese omelet and I ordered this big loaded omelet, which he couldn't eat half of it. And he took it with him, which is fine. Oh, all right. And I explained it to her. Well, this is what happened. You just merely got our orders mixed up. She was so harried. I don't even think she quite understood that, but okay. That was my last encounter with Mark. And I just said, no, it's nobody's fault. It just happened. I thought that was a interesting little story. So now that I've given our evaluators a few minutes to think about what they're going to do, let's introduce our first evaluator, Anne-Marie Lenhard.
Yes, good morning again, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Lester Robinson. I'm going to look at the speech in 2 different ways. One, the content of the speech, and secondly, the delivery. And the delivery is important because Lester's goal, of course, was to use body language and also focus on the delivery in terms of his voice quality. So Lester, you are such an itinerant speaker. You're so experienced in this subject. And I always ask myself, how much did we learn from the speaker? And we really learned a ton of information. In fact, he was very passionate about communicating the information. So the scaffolding of the speech, which is a good introduction, interesting body with examples and conclusions, were really excellent. In fact, as a sidebar, Lester actually sold my husband and I long-term care insurance, and I have recommended him to other people. So I don't think we could have gotten a more experienced person on this particular subject. Again, the example that he gave about probate with the $600,000 and that they had to pay the attorney $40,000, I think is a reality. And I went through the nursing care with my mom and my family, and it's really, really scary. So multi-generational planning is very important. So good in terms of content. The other two areas, voice quality and body language, A+ on body language. You used your hand with the phone. You talked about, you really enhanced the message with very powerful gestures. I think that they were intentional, and they were very effective in terms of bringing forth your points. So the nonverbal communication was really good. Eye contact is the only thing that I would recommend working on, because you were looking up most of the time, and I was waiting for you to look directly at me and really engage me. And I didn't feel that through most of the speech. So that, I think, could have enhanced your speech. Vocal variety was very good. Tone, speed, volume, pacing were excellent. You were articulate in your use of language, and it was effective. So overall, a very effective speech, both in content and delivery. And I look forward to your future speeches, and I'm still recommending you to my friends in terms of long-term care. Lester Robinson, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our second evaluator is Mark Campus, who will evaluate Tracy. So Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Tracy. Good morning once again. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So here in Toastmasters, it's all about learning and growth. And it was a real treat to observe a speech about one of our fellow Toastmasters learning and growth. And Tracy showed off a wide range of speaking skills this morning. First off, I'll call this her engagement with the camera. Normally, and I've said this at the risk of being repetitive, that I like to see the camera at eye level where you're looking right into it. Tracy's camera was just a little bit lower. However, I never found it distracting because Tracy often, as she was speaking, would lean in towards that camera. And I found it to be very engaging, and it lent itself to a very conversational style. It felt like she and I were just having a cup of coffee and she was telling me about her experiences navigating through this pathway. So great job with that. I thought your gestures throughout the speech were really strong, very expressive. I liked how you were very smooth. You are an excellent multitasker because you would have a thought that you were expressing, looking at the camera, and then you could keep talking, but glance down to your notes very smoothly, never stumbled, never missed a beat. It was very effective. I also thought your speech had great vocal variety, so terrific job with that. Now, building upon these strengths, I think you could have been even more effective in just a few ways. I'd like to see you maintain that focus on the camera. At times, as you were talking, your eyes would flash up as you maybe gathered a thought. Keep the focus on the camera as much as you can unless you're looking down at your notes. Secondly, you were so smooth, I question how much you really needed those notes. I think maybe as smooth as it was, you probably didn't need to be as reliant upon them and glance down as often as you did. And third, given your title, I was expecting that to be part of a punchline at the end, like a strong ending to the speech. And you had the time to build that up and drive that point home because you just came in at 10 minutes. So I would have loved to see that title be part of like a strong finish to the speech. But overall, it was a terrific job. I thought it was a speech that was full of substance. It was great to hear about your experiences and all you learned. Terrific job today, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. Now for our third evaluator of the day, Kate. You come up and evaluate Dave Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. General Evaluator. And thank you, David, for the laughs. I know you're a funny person, and we had a lot of laughs a week ago today. This is probably the funniest speech that you have shared with us, and an excellent demonstration of this new project, writing a speech with purpose, because at the end, you told us the purpose, which was a great clinching finish. Now back to the beginning. You set the stage for us with this story and you reeled us in. And I was watching the audience on camera and the audience in the room, and there were so many smiles and laughs. Thank you for that levity this morning. It was very appreciated. Your purpose was clear. It was clever. We kind of knew it along the path, but you gave it to us at the finish. Your toolbox is so strong with your facial expressions. Your gestures were off the map today, and your positioning with the background was fantastic for us to see you and hear you clearly. I loved your sound effects with the UFO. It could have gone further. I was waiting for a little bit more. I was honestly crying at some points. It was that funny. I think we all could use some laughs. So I do appreciate the clever twist and demonstrating to us to dive right into those new projects. Perhaps, I mean, it's very challenging to find a suggestion. Perhaps a little more at the beginning of explaining the purpose, but not really that necessary. I think I'm digging to find that as a suggestion. Your eye contact is solid. You wrote this speech very well and kept us going through the whole time. I'm sure if I thought more and more, I could find suggestions. So I'll email you something, perhaps. I will say 2 sidebar notes. One is the ribbing on the Subarus. I drive a Subaru, for anyone in the room who doesn't know. David does know this, as I was his driver for part of last week. And he said, Subaru, it's always a Subaru on the throughway if the traffic is slowing down. Yeah, I'm a hippie. I know I'm a hippie. I'm a slower, safer hippie too. The other sidebar is, Jesus has called you. Well, that took me down a trip down memory lane. I got a phone call about 20 years ago from Pope John Paul II. A girlfriend of mine worked in Washington, D.C. at the Pope John Paul II Center, and caller ID was a new thing at the time on my phone. And it said, Pope John Paul II calling. So we should talk sometime about the Pope and Jesus. Thank you so much, David. It was wonderful. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. Now, if we can get a timer's report on our 3 evaluators.
This is a job. You got to pay attention. You can't really listen to the speech all that much. And then you got to run up here every 2 minutes. Let's see. All of our evaluators made time. Anne Marie, 2:35, Mark, 2:51, and Kate, 2:44. All qualified.
Thank you. Now you can vote for the evaluator of your choice. Yes. What? Well, you can take over if you wish. I haven't done my report on you yet or anything.
No, I'll bring you up later.
Okay, that's your call. You're the TM.
All right. I will bring him back. I will. I'm not going to do that to Stephen. Now, I do have to call on some reports, though. And we're going to save the WAG master till very, very end. Should we save him till after Stephen? We'll save him till after Stephen. Get everybody a chance. But we do have questions. We do have questions. And it is... Where is he? I'm looking at him on his.
I'm right here.
Are you here? You be here?
And I be there, yes.
All right. Eric, are you ready? You have some
Yes.
questions for us. Eric Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Let's serendipity our way into these questions, shall we? All righty. This question is worth $20, and I'll make sure I have the money next week. If not, then you guys know where I live. Anyway, what did Mark Crane buy from Marty's garage sale?
A Victrola.
Very good. $20 for Mark. You got right an IOU on here, huh? Now, what TV show did Joe mention in Table Topics? I can't hear from. I can't.
Little
hear from
House
the-
on the Prairie? By
There you
Jack.
go.
That's it.
All right. What is Toastmasters going to help with for Mary Beth in her Table Topics? What's I can't hear anything.
What is it? Speaking. I know.
Yeah.
Speaking, was it? Speaking.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
To the
What was that, Mark?
to the kid.
because I was thinking that she worked as a lunch monitor.
Yeah, that too. Mary messaged me saying that she said she was sorry to throw me under the bus. She didn't throw me under the bus, but here's the question for what is Mary Beth, Kate, and myself going to be baking this weekend?
Something pumpkin, they say. Muffins.
Yes. Yes. And who got Tracy to join another Toastmasters club?
Deb.
Deborah Franco, they say from here.
Yes, thank you. Very good. And Phil, don't answer this question, but for everybody else, Phil says, who is the hostess with the mostest? Who is that?
Nador.
Gator, they say.
Yep. And where is David Jones traveling to next week?
Ooh,
Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, they say.
Yes. All right. I don't know how much money we racked up, but I will give a precise one. I think we made a good $100 today. So.
All right.
Thank you, Phil.
There we go. All right, Eric. Thank you very, very much. I hate to do this. It's your turn, Stephen. You can pick on me now and close out the meeting. You gotta have to do the serendipity thing and bring up Dave Licata to evaluate each of us. Thank you, Stephen.
We'll get to Dave. Thank you. I think I'll start with the evaluators. They did a great job today in what has become a very difficult job in evaluating almost any of us here. But yet they still found room for improvement, as well as accentuating the good things that all the speakers did. And it makes for a nice, well-rounded evaluation. And I'd like to publicly say, evaluations do help. Jackie evaluated me a couple of times and she's telling me, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm sitting there. Hey, what are you talking about? I thought I wasn't. And it finally dawned on me when I'm sitting there on the computer, I'm sitting there looking at the monitor when I'm talking, and I wasn't looking up at the camera. And I didn't occur to me till finally listening to what she said, getting some feedback, dawned on me what I was doing. Thank you for that, because I didn't realize I was doing it. I thought I was looking at the camera. I wasn't. That's where the evaluators come in. They tell us things that we don't even realize we're doing. So evaluation does serve a purpose. It helps us all grow. We can all learn from this. Now, Phil, I made a big note here and circled it. He did not introduce me. And he tried to cover his butt. Nice try. Okay, that's a minor infraction because of the way it's written up. Most of us don't think to introduce the general evaluator, and we should. Other than that, Phil's very entertaining. He runs a nice meeting. He makes us laugh. He brings some wonderful anecdotes whenever he talks. And I thought he did a very good job. Everything was going in order. He had everything lined up, all the jobs filled as best he could. So I give you high marks for your job of the day. So I give you a good rating, and I can't, again, see much room for improvement, but there's always room for improvement. So work on it. Now I think it is time that we hear from our WAG. He can do it in any order he wishes, the master, grammarian, and the word master. So educate us, Dave.
I lost some thought there.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to start with the word and then I'm going to introduce the members of my WAG team. Or as we're called in the league, the Waggers. Okay, Phil used the word once and then stretched it twice. Marty Johnson once, Eric Snyder once, Jackie Kenny 3 times, and in the right context. You're welcome. Dr. Anne Marie Leonard once, Mark Campos once. Tracy Farrell did not use it. David Jones once. And that is the word report. And let's start now with the master. You can do it. Take it away.
I had Oz and Carol Ann had 5, Wes had 1, Steve had 2, and Dr. Emery had 2.
Thank you so much.
Bravo. Thank you.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
And now here's Kate with the grammar.
The G of the Waggers. I'll take a page out of Margot's book and most a really out a year out a kind of gonna really wanna doing, wanna gonna, what are you gonna getting really gonna kind of stuff, gonna kind of gonna gotta. Gonna was not the word of the day, folks. Whoever told you that was wrong. I didn't hear much stellar vocabulary, but a lot of strong words that elevates who we are and it adds to our caliber as speakers and our credibility when we're speaking with others. And I love to hear it here and then take it outside of Toastmasters too. Scenario, keen, joy, threshold, expressive, character traits, itinerant, enhanced, appreciate, would eat their mother. I mean, not positive, but that made me laugh and many around me. Scaffolding, sidebar, intentional, terrific, substance, bringing forth and navigating. Thank you very much for excellent grammar today. Oh, wait, 2 negatives. I shouldn't end with a negative. Joe, especially. Wow, you threw in a K there. Especially is not the word. And Gerald, what? Potpourri thingy? I know you were joking with the potpourri theme of the day. Excellent theme of the day. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Back to the WAG captain or the GE. I'm not sure what's happening.
On behalf of the WAG team, I'd like to report that that is our report. Mr. General Evaluator.
Well, thank you, Phil, and your whole WAG team. So I guess it's time to close out the meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have the winners? Well, come on up.
Thank you. You can stay up here with me.
Oh, gee, thanks. Oh,
Now, who's going to introduce our winners?
well, we can split this up.
We can split it up.
Sure.
We should start with
Table topics.
table topics. Where's our table topics thingy? Here's our thingy. I learned that from my grandchildren. I know.
Whatever.
Oh, table topics?
Table topics. Table topics. Mary Beth.
Come on up. Come on up. Come on. Come on and shake hands. Shake our hand. There we go. And then we have a ribbon for you. Who'll be second? Who's on second? No, who's on first?
Sure he is.
Oh. Yeah, you're good at that. Not me. I'm not good at that. Our best evaluator.
Our best evaluator is Anne Marie Lenhart.
When you come again, you'll get a ribbon. And our best speaker.
Our best speaker today, David Jones.
In David's place.
I'll let the,
Oh, gee.
winner.
Last three numbers. Wins $5.
Last three number on your blue ticket. Last three numbers, 882. I got it.
Jackie.
I don't need to look then, do I?
No. Very good. Now, we have just enough time for Dr. Stevens. Last on my list.
Dr.
to
Stevens
close
had
out
to
the
sign
meeting.
off.
What's that?
Dr. Stevens has signed off, so I
He
think
has signed off. Who's our next presiding officer? Kate. There you go.
Sorry. Any announcements from the floor? Any announcements? Stephen has an announcement, so he's right here. He will start next first.
I'd just like to announce to everybody that Jill and I are doing our annual Halloween party, 28th, not this week, following week. I have flyers here, the 28th. And we've been doing this for 46 years, or I have. So I just like to invite everybody down. Put that down. Invite everybody down. You're more than welcome. That's all I have.
I guess that's it, right? Kate, you ready to adjourn?
Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Our Toastmaster next week is Nancy. She said, don't ask me quite yet what the theme is. We're working on that. Speakers, I know I'm on the list and Sylvia is on the list and
Margot.
Margot and Margot, I hear from Margot.
And Steve is the alternate speaker.
Your alternate, sir. I am confirming. Margot, are you confirming? Sounds like great, Nancy. At least the two of us have confirmed and you can check with Sylvia. Okay, doesn't look like there are any other announcements. I am pleased to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.